welcome to Choosing Acceptance podcast with your host, Marie Mason. I am here to share some success stories and tips on how to overcome your learning disability so that you can turn your talents into a career. And I love to inspire children and parents and teachers with learning disabilities to go beyond their limits so that they can make a bigger impact in the world. Schedule a call to become a guest on our show at calendly.com/Marie V. Mason. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Choosing Acceptance podcast with your host, Marie Mason. We have a great show for you lined up, and you don't want to miss it. We will be sharing some great tips on how to overcome your learning disability and how to turn your talents into a career. So stick around for some advice from people who are struggling with this learning disability. And at the end of the episode, we will share how to get access to some great resources to help you understand your learning disability. Our topic today is on the Titans with the Entrepreneurial Titans, right? Is that the correct one?
That's correct. Yes.
I had a trying to remember what it was. Sorry. I had a little moment. And Susan Boyd is with us today. So glad to have you here, Susan. And I am really grateful they get to hear you and not me today.
Oh, thank you.
So, especially during this holiday season. So really quick, we're going to start off with our top tips and then we're going to bring you up. Okay?
Okay.
So last week we talked about autism spectrum disorder and really just defined what that is, because I think one of the things this show is going to focus on is one, defining things, and also really give you guys some clarity of what to look for as far as signs that you can, recognize different things. And keep in mind, as we talked about with John Chuchek, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. He's on here to correct me. So long story short, we had him talk about the gift of autism. And long story short, he brought up a good point. And that is sometimes what you see in a person with learning disability, they may have more than one learning disability. So that means they have a multiple of different symptoms to look for. And so they also can cross over to different ones, similar ones too. So that's why sometimes it's really hard to diagnose right away. That's why sometimes, like I said before, adults have gone through their lives not even being diagnosed because they might not have had the resources that we tried to share on our show. They might not have had people like Susan Boyd who's helped people with that as well. I mean, if I had known some of the people now, back when I was growing up, I probably would have gotten even more help. I mean, I got good help as it was, but I would have gotten more than just tutoring, if that makes sense. So the long story short of it is, we know more now about learning disabilities than we did 30 years ago or 40 years ago, but it's still an untapped industry. It's still something we're learning about more and more every year. So in today's episode, we're going to discuss the 3 common signs of autism, and then we're going to bring up this week's guest, Susan Boyd, who's going to talk about the Entrepreneurial Titans, because we're always talking about sharing your talents and turning them into a career. So that's something we're going to touch up base on. So first common sign of autism, understanding social cues is a big one, okay? And you might see that in other learning disabilities too, because sometimes, especially the younger they are, it's a little harder for them. They're probably more socially awkward. I don't know if Susan would agree to see about that one. She might.
It depends on the individual. They're all unique. Everybody's unique.
Exactly. Yes. And that's exactly the right point. The individuals with autism often have difficulties with social cues, such as body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice. And they might not be able to understand emotions of others. It depends on their level of autism too. Higher functioning ones might have a better understanding of it, and ones with a lower threshold might not. So it just depends on where they are on that spectrum. And so they might have difficulty even understanding jokes or sarcasm, depending on the situation. they might even have struggled with initiating or maintaining a conversation and keeping it flowing. So I've worked with some people who go off on tangents. I mean, and I do sometimes, and we did before the show. So, but at the same time, it was related to a holiday season that we're in. So it wasn't too far off the mark. But the point is, it was more, sometimes you have to find icebreakers, but at the same time, you have to know when it's to cut it from an icebreaker and bring it to the main point of the conversation. And some of these folks might not know how to do that as easily. So transitions might be really, really hard for them. So they also might have the number 2 part is difficulty verbalizing their thoughts and feelings. So sharing their emotions are a little more challenging for these children with autism. And they might have difficulty verbalizing their thoughts and their feelings due to lack of development of language skills. So the younger they are, the more likely that's going to be the case. And also people with different various stages of autism. So keep that in mind. So there's different skill levels in that department. Also, number 3, repeating certain activities or behaviors. So these are repetition behaviors and activities that are repeated over and over again so that they have difficulty with social interaction and difficulty with verbal and nonverbal communications. These are the main signs that of autism that may or may not be the same for everyone, as I've alluded to before. And the people with autism will display other more subtle signs as well that are harder to detect right away to an untrained professional. So that's why it's always good if you can get your child assessed early on, the better you have in being able to get the help that they need sooner, rather than waiting until they're older and struggling with not understanding your child. So the key thing is getting them the help as quickly as possible. So before we bring up today's speaker, here's a word from one of our sponsors, and we'll be right back after this commercial break. Meet Marie Mason from Charlottesville, Virginia. She is a podcast consultant for Liberty Virtual Solutions. She empowers transformation coaches who want to boost their business with podcasts by brainstorming the content and structure of their podcast. Our proven podcast roadmap will help you to develop a strategy for launching your podcast so that you can grow your business. Rebring your podcast to life at libertyvirtualsolutions.com. And welcome back to the Choosing Acceptance podcast with your host and speaker, Marie Mason. And our guest actually is going to be Susan Boyd, not me, so that's even better. And her background is a certified teaching in English as a second language, and she is a parent coach that helps with LD kids or learning disabled kids who have to live with exceptionalities and helps them to navigate their IEPs. And today's topic is the Entrepreneurial Titans. And no, I cannot pronounce that word to save my life. Susan, I don't know what it is that I pick these words when we pick these topics. I can't pronounce some of them. So
well, that's all right. Dyslexic. The Titans are the guys who are billionaires living with dyslexia.
Right. And we're going to touch base on some great examples of people who are living with learning disabilities and really have done an amazing job with their life and their business and careers, because we want to paint, for this episode, we want to paint that picture of success, right? And helping them, people really realize about turning their talents into a career and what's possible. And I love the fact that we're doing that this episode right before the new year, because people are looking to maybe start a new career or figuring out what they want to do in life. And it's always good to get some good examples. So that's great that we're doing this show right before the new year and right before the holidays, because this is a great time to do that assessment. So the first question I have in mind really is, how did business owners with learning disabilities overcome their limiting beliefs? And first, explain a little bit about the limiting beliefs.
Okay, so people who have learning disabilities often struggle in school because I'm a special education teacher, so I know what to look for and how to help people that have reading and writing and maybe math disabilities. My brother is an adult who grew up
And
with
so
dyslexia.
you've been able to recognize when someone has a learning disability, and you're able to help recognize when they're dealing with a self-limiting belief, right?
Right. And so their self-limiting
Can you
belief
define
comes
what a
from
limiting
school.
belief is?
Yes, it comes from school because they've been ridiculed and made fun of. If they're called upon in an elementary classroom to read out loud.
Could you explain about what limiting beliefs are? Because in case some of us might not know that definition.
Okay, so limiting beliefs are when you have an inner self-talk to say, I cannot do it, I can't succeed, or I hate school. So my brother, for example, would play hooky in elementary school because he would fail. He could not read the typical way. And it was early 1970s, before 1975 Education for All, when that increased services for people with learning disabilities, Public Law 101. So after that law was passed, you had a greater percentage of people getting help, support. My brother did have special reading classes, however, but still, he couldn't sit still. Following directions and all that stuff were difficult. So he had, we call comorbidity, which would be ADHD and dyslexia.
Wow.
Now his daughter is an adult. She has ADD, attention deficit disorder, and reading disabilities, and had some speech delays. So early intervention is key. And when you go to your pediatrician, your doctor, and the children are not making those milestones with the language, usually is the first indicator. So a limiting mindset often starts at school with other kids making fun of, oh, you can't read, you don't know how to read, or you had an F on that paper. So school was not a fun place for a lot of these kids with dyslexia. And these titans will tell you, like Richard Branson quit school at 15, decided to become his own boss. And my brother quit school, but he decided to become his own boss because he knew he was smart. It just didn't show up in school. Yeah. So he had that inner belief of, yes, I can, despite what these report cards show.
Right. And exactly. And you brought up a good point, because the report card doesn't necessarily reflect someone's intelligence. It just is more, like you said, more used more like a benchmark of where you are in progressing in your education. And that's something that people need to keep in mind.
That's right.
Because people would go to schools. I was lucky I had people who recognized my intelligence. I just had test anxiety, so I didn't test well. So I was sometimes reflected that in my education and my school, my report cards. And I always had several teachers tell me she's incredibly intelligent. I've had other people assess me and tell my mom she's very intelligent. And it's just, and my creative brain, even as an adult, is very clear now that I'm intelligent. It's just that there's different types of intelligence, and it's book learned intelligence versus the hands-on. And I mean, there's so many different kinds of types of intelligence.
Exactly. And that's what we see in school. It's just the main highway of reading and writing.
Right.
And I just read a report this morning, 20% of kids have dyslexia. So they're not making that grade. You know, they're not looking like the average kid. And so the challenge becomes, well, how do you engage them to like school? And that's where the IEP comes in. Well, individually, this person needs more hands-on. So I've been in early intervention classes where you make it a game with the letters in the mouth of the monster and go fishing for rhyming words and that kind of stuff. So that's kinesthetic bodily knowledge. And that's where you have a lot of these sports athletes. Some of these guys are professional athletes who really had a hard time reading.
Right.
Because they're body smart.
Right. They have other forms of intelligence. And it's not necessarily reflected in the reading department. And some are gifted in reading. And I mean, I was very gifted in reading, and I was very gifted in comprehension. I was high above my age level in both of those departments, but my spelling and handwriting was atrocious. But and I still am the typo queen even today. But that's why we have Google Docs and that have, autocorrect and all that kind of
Right,
stuff.
spell
But
check.
even spell check isn't perfect, I'm just gonna say.
I see that with mine as well.
I'll give you a case in point. I had a potential joint venture partner, and his name was, and he's from India, so they're generally short in nature and in height. That's your general thing. Well, his name was Shrima, and I was writing an email, and the email that I was writing using Gmail tends to autocorrect sometimes. Well, it autocorrected to "Hey Shrimp."
Oh no.
And I laugh about that when I'm so glad I caught that before I sent that. Could you imagine his reaction?
Right. He would not be happy.
One, how do you know I was short? I've only seen her on Zoom, and it's like,
Well, so and that takes us back to the limiting beliefs, because we have these external outside, if it's school or other kids or other people making fun or ridicule, which kids do, unfortunately, but knowing that inner self-talk. Dr. Amen is a great psychologist, and he talks about ants, automatic negative thoughts. Get rid of your ants. So when you have that self-talk, oh, I'm so stupid, why did I do it that way? You have to get rid of that. Say, oh, I don't know it yet, but I'm able to learn. And that's the growth mindset that Carol Dweck's been talking about.
That's awesome. I always talk to I'm a business coach, and I actually wanted to make sure that I'm clear with my students that, whenever I hear them say something negative, I help them flip it into a positive. And it's all about simply adjusting your mindset and seeing it from a different perspective.
That's exactly right.
That's what that negative, mindset is. And you have to be able to understand, you don't have to, when you repeat a negative mindset, sometimes it becomes a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy.
Right.
And you don't want to have those repetitive patterns. So if you want to change those repetitive patterns, this is what Susan's trying to explain, is that she wants us to be able to change how we word things so it's positive spin to it, and focusing more on what we can do and instead of what we can't do. Is that correct?
That's right. And the key word is yet. I may not know it yet, but I can learn. Or like Henry Ford, he was a titan with dyslexia. I may not know how to do this, but I can find the people who will, and I can bring them apart as my team.
Yep.
And that's what he did with the assembly line.
That's how I am with my business, because I have people who do skills that I have tried to learn and realize I don't have the time or the patience to learn. And I'd rather outsource it to somebody who knows what they're doing already.
Well, that's right. And teamwork, collaboration.
Exactly. Teamwork makes the dream work. I'm just saying, that's just my motto. Anyway, so long story short, that's a great illustrations for what to do with overcoming our learning limiting beliefs, especially related to learning disabilities. So I am fumbling over my words as always, so just bear with me. I keep trying to tell people you don't have to be perfect to put out a podcast. You just have to be yourself. Okay,
that's right. Trying to point
out. Right. Next question, so we can keep this rolling. How effective were their communication skills as a leader in their company?
Charles Schwab is one of the titans that I've looked into, and he was not diagnosed till he was an adult. Now he has a free parent website that I'll provide at the end for people that are interested. He was an effective leader because he communicated directly, explicitly, his vision of what he wanted to have happen. So communication and confidence. He believed in what he was doing. And a lot of these people like Sir Richard Branson believed in what he was doing, and they take risks. So like Virgin Cola plummeted, but he was, sometimes you learn from your mistakes, but then Branson had Virgin Airlines, and now it's space America, like it's Virgin Galactic. He's taking people around the atmosphere in these spaceships. So
Awesome.
having faith in yourself, right? And
Right.
clear communication with the direction of the mission.
Mm-hmm.
The people with dyslexia, Branson will tell you that in YouTube videos that they have creativity and they're able to see the big picture, whereas other people don't. Maybe they only see their part in the team, like minute steps, but he was a big picture person, the same way with Schwab, with the investment, Charles Schwab investment.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm a creative, and I think that's true with creative people too, with creative minds. We see the big picture. We can see the whole vision, as you were talking about, and that's really vision, really cool for all visionaries. Think of Thomas Edison and how many times he failed at creating a light bulb before we have lights. Now we have lights and electricity, and thank goodness for that, right?
Exactly.
So we wouldn't be able to do things like Zoom calls on laptop computers. But long story short, and it's all about, trial, fail, and adjust. And it's okay to fail because you learn from your mistakes as well as best.
Just like you said with Thomas Edison, he's another person that's been known to have dyslexia, but he kept going 10,000 different parts to find that filament to make that light bulb go and light. So 10,000 times he tried different things. So I don't know about you. I don't know if I would have stuck with it 10,000 times, but he certainly did. He saw the big picture, electricity for lights and not oil lamps.
And he was looking at more of a global solution and a global solution to a problem that we now take for granted. But at the same time, I mean, think about people who are thought bigger than something else, bigger than themselves. And I mean, that's one of the things that creative people do, and whether they have a learning disability or not. But that's something that I really want to focus on, is you really need to understand that we think out of the box solutions. Right. And learning disability students and adults tend to be very resourceful because they have to do things differently with their learning and how they approach things. So they're very good at overcoming their problems and situations as they grow up, because they've had to learn how to trial, fail, and adjust more than the average person. So
that's right.
Right.
Tenacity, right?
There you go. The word I was looking for. I painted the picture for tenacity there. Good point. So the next question is, moving along, is how well do they get along with others, especially in social situations, starting in the workplace, and we'll just start from there.
Well, again, it depends on the individual. So usually people who have a reading disability are very strong verbally. So again, that communication and being able to communicate and express themselves. With the communication of step by step, multi steps with math problems, maybe in a group in high school, it's not as effective. However, if it's something they're doing solo, like Michael Phelps, for example, the Olympian, ADHD. He wasn't a team player, but he excelled in a solo sport. So he was able to take it and do his laps, right? And become a gold medal winner. So it depends on the individual and their strengths, and everybody's different. And there's different degrees, of course, of level of learning disability, so it depends on how they and when they get the intervention. So for example, Kevin O'Leary, the shark from Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, he talks about as a child being diagnosed with dyslexia, he wasn't able to read. However, he could turn his book upside down and read it in a mirror.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he had the mirror writing going on and the mirror reading. And his mother, they were in Canada, so they went to McGill University, where they were just starting these breakthroughs in learning disabilities for dyslexic students to learn how to read. And he became one of the first kids in that cohort to learn. And his teacher told him, you have a superpower, use it. And so he thought, yeah, I can. And then with practice, he was able to eventually get away from the mirror reading and read normally. And again, communication with, look at Dean Graziosi. He's very verbal. He knows how to speak and inspire people. He has a team to do all the different steps. He has a big vision. So it becomes individualized, but the communication of them being able to speak their vision and share and ignite other people interested in it. So 40% of successful business owners have dyslexia, which I think is amazing, because they're able to think outside of the box, like you said, communicate with their team to say, we're going to do this.
Creativity. Yeah. They had that out of the box mindset. And they're also another one of the key successes for people, especially with learning disabilities, but anybody who's got a success in their business, a lot of it's determination. And you said and you alluded to this, they have a superpower, but then and they also have a determination and desire, and they have a sense of purpose.
Yes.
So, and those are just three of the elements. So those are just three of the elements anyway. I just did something silly. Ever have those moments?
Yes.
But anyway, but long story short, that's really amazing. I love the examples you shared too. And so the next question, which really wanted to paint that picture, what are some of the daily business habits and routines? It can have some life stuff in there, mixed in there too, but I'm really trying to find out, for example, trying to think of John Maxwell talks about the 5 daily habits in one of his, and probably more than one of his books, but particularly in one of his books. And I think it's the 7 effective habits of highly effective.
Stephen Covey. Yes.
Is it Stephen Covey? I don't know. I also know John Maxwell has a leadership book also that talks about that as well. So, and I've read both Stephen Covey books and John Maxwell books. So could have mixed up the titles.
So no, that's true. Leaders have good habits. I mean, and they, like you said, especially with children with autism, where they stay on one topic. So my grandson is on the spectrum with he had a speaking delay, but he loves trains. Okay. He loves trains. I like trains, but he really loved Thomas the Tank Engine, which is a common one, or Legos. But getting back to leaders, there's a new book called Atomic Habits by, I want to say, James Clear. Okay. And he talks about habit stacking. And this is what Dean Graziosi has also mentioned in Tony Robbins. Effective communicators, determination, creativity, and they think outside of the box. So Dean Graziosi, I've been in a lot of his trainings. He talks about his personal habits every day. In the morning, he wakes up at 4 a.m. and he works out. He does his physical exercise. He has a green tea, which is natural herbal, so he's getting his vegetable intake. And he does, like, if he's going to take a supplement while he's brushing his teeth, the habit stacking is something you do every day. You put another habit on top of it. So say it's an herbal supplement, like I'm taking Prevagen for my brain health. So I'll take it with my brushing my teeth. So it's a habit stacking. And then if I'm walking the dog, then I'm also going to put my pedometer on to get my steps in and walk the dog extra to get that extra, mile in. Right. So habit stacking is important. And then having that consistently, that routine. So if it's a work week, 5 days on, 2 days off. And like Dean Graziosi loves the idea he's his own boss, so he can go and do baseball training with his kids. He can go to the Little League baseball games. He can go to the softball games and watch his daughter pitch and practice with her. So that time,
yeah,
he builds a calendar chunk of time to make that happen. He uses a legal pad where he has things he has to do immediately in the day, things he's waiting to do by the end of the month, and then the other column is people who have to get back to him. So he's a big team player, and he has masterminds that, you know, he's asking people, and they pay it at least $25,000 to $100,000 for sessions to get his training. So that's a successful creative businessman. He knows his routines. He knows how to do it. He knows how to deliver results.
Love it. And it's important that they know their routines and have their workflows, as well as be able to deliver their results, because what is it that we pay people for? Results.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome. This has been a very amazing session. And I really loved how we were able to paint that success. And we did that through the stories that we shared, because I really believe it's not just about always sharing lots of information. Because what I learned in growing up is that you remember about 1/10 of the information. But if you share a story, you remember the feeling you got from the story much longer than you remember the actual information from the story. So I'm just saying that's why I was painting those, that's why I wanted you to paint those examples, because just so that we can focus on what's possible, because people might be thinking about doing some of the different types of career paths that we painted the picture for. Think of the people that are also around you as some of the examples that you admire, and see what they do. And then go, and what I encourage people to do, go learn from these people. Go shadow them even.
Yes, job shadow is excellent.
Job shadowing is an incredibly good way to understand what it is they do on a day-to-day basis and what makes them successful, and find out what their why is and their purpose and their goals and their dreams and aspirations, and find out their beliefs and their values. That's all part of you being a business owner. And that's all part of, you know, who you are as a business owner, and also find out who they are also as their values as a person, and make sure they align with what you want to do. And
what technology does now is makes it easy for us to access these leaders, because there's plenty of videos. I have some links to show some interviews of them, you know, so they're answering questions, and they talk about the feelings of how they felt inadequate in school. But it's a temporary time period, 12 years, you graduate. A lot of them went into business, didn't go to college. But hey, they're making $1 billion.
They're self-made millionaires. Right? They have self-made millionaires.
That's right.
But here's the thing. I still am a strong believer in education. I believe that you can be a self-taught millionaire. You can also go to school and be a millionaire still. It's not about whether or not you go to school or not. I think that's something I want to be clear. It's all about making sure you have a dream and a goal, and that you educate yourself. Like I said, whether it's self-taught or not, you need to be able to find your path. You need to be able to find your career. You need to be able to find your purpose, is really what it boils down to.
Right. And you said you have an 11th grader, and I know that as a high school teacher, we would help children with IEPs get on their pathway. So if somebody wants to become a nurse, they would shadow nursing, join an after-school club, and then also maybe get CPR during the summer and volunteer. So put yourself into some of these environments. And nursing, we need plenty of people to help out with nursing, and EMTs, people that really want to move. And for example, this one doctor, John Hopkins, he was a member of CHAD, and that's children and adults with attention deficit disorder. He said he literally burned off his sneakers in grad school from running around doing his residency, because he was always on the move, but he loved reading, so he could do the deep dive into all the medical things. So it's possible if you want to become a doctor, a businessman, whatever you, like you said, your passion, and get there, put yourself in that place and get a mentor, job shadow,
they're all
and research.
Right. Research is another keyword too, but we're not going to get down that path today. But thank you so much for being on the show. I think we learned a lot and drank from a fire hose, but hopefully it's been helpful. And just keep in mind, while we're doing the holiday seasons, Christmas and New Year's and all the holidays in between, because there's so many of them out there, I don't want to mess them up, the names of them, and take too long naming them. So long story short, keep in mind, this is a great time for you to sit there and reflect on what you've accomplished. It also has reflect on your skills, your values, your beliefs, and then your talents. And then see if there's something that you want to do as a career, or maybe share some of those talents while you're going to school. Maybe you want to be a writer. So maybe working on a literary magazine like I did in college or high school. And so actually I did that in high school. But long story short is do something and test it out. And my mom always said, you won't know what you're good at until you try it. And at least try it once and try it for several, periods, a certain length of time. Don't just try it one day. You want to try it for several months before you can see if you get acclimated to it. And then if you like it, stick with it. And if you don't, let it go and find something else that you might be interested in it. Because you're going to make a lot of pivots and choices until you find your passion. But once you find that passion, these pictures that we painted on today's show, that determination, that all that stuff that we talked about with these great examples, be creative, think out of the box, because we need new solutions all the time.
Yes,
we're having trouble with power in some countries. We need people to come up with saving solutions or power or new resources for power. There's so many things that are so unexplored right now. It's endless possibilities. Hey, that might be a topic for a show for another day. But anyway, it is so great to have you. We've got to wrap it up.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll be able to stay in touch, Susan, because I know we've got lots of things we would like to work together on.
That's right. Happy New Year.
Yeah. I always like collaborations. So anyway,
Me too.
You do have a quick last question for you before we completely wrap up. You do have a resource for our audience, right? I just want to make sure.
I do. I have Google Slides, and I have it on my Facebook page, but I can send it to you for your Facebook page as well.
Perfect.
And it's about the Entrepreneurial Titans from dyslexia to dynasty. And then at the end, it tells you some just YouTube clips. You can look at some of these guys.
Cool. I like it. You said from dyslexia
to dynasty. So, because they're carrying on generational habits for their children and grandchildren.
Love it. And that's a really good point. You want to make sure you leave a legacy, and it doesn't matter about the past, what it is, what you're struggling with now in your past. You can overcome anything with determination and focus and all these daily habits and all these different goals that you have. You just get the right support.
That's right.
You're going to be
a mentor, a coach, a teacher, a program. That's what I help people with coaching. So I'll have that on the last slide as well.
Awesome. And I'm also a business coach as well. So I'm defining what that is, because I'm making a pivot in my business. But it's probably more likely leaning towards business strategy. So if people need help with their goals and their focus, we can also help them with that as well. So anyway, much appreciated for you to be here. I do have a quick resource as well. My first one is that we do offer a place for people with learning disabilities to go to. And it's a great community, Facebook community. It's Bubble Bears Books. It's Bears Books membership. And we also have Choosing Acceptance podcast and Facebook as well. So you're welcome to get all of our episodes from that space as well. And the book Bubble Bears Books is related to my book, which is really a great one. It's actually called Bubble Bears Special Problem. I'm the author Marie Mason, and Pearl Jones is the illustrator, and I have an editor too named Tifa, who has a different spelling than her pronunciation, so I will not butcher her name. Anyway, keeping it simple, right? Long story short, this book destigmatizes learning disabilities in order to provide better understanding for their learning process, and it helps children to overcome their fears of learning disabilities so they can contribute their talents in turning them into career by bringing awareness of how children should be treated both in and outside of the classroom, both from children, young children, all the way through adults, because I feel like sometimes even adults get shunned a little bit as well. So we want to make sure we bring this awareness to everybody. So this has been an amazing show. I cannot believe we're at the end, but it's an honor to be able to share some valuable tips to our audience to grow themselves on the Choosing Acceptance podcast. Our topic was on the Entrepreneur Titans with Susan Boyd. And I just want to encourage you guys to take advantage of her offer and mine, and they will be on our YouTube channel, and you will see them on social media once we get the video edited. We're being very flexible during the holiday seasons about when they come out. So to give us more flexibility because of this, Christmas, New Year's, and all the holidays in between. So keep in mind, we might be a little delayed getting some of these out during the holiday season, so bear with us, but they will be out during the month of December. So I wanted to make sure the book, let you know that the copy of the book is on Amazon, and join us again next week for some great tips on how to overcome your learning disability and achieve success. And we do stream every week on our YouTube channel, so please make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you don't miss another episode, and also make some comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. And if you have an idea for a show or want to be a guest, let us know, and just reach out to us. And you can also find us on the YouTube channel called Choosing Acceptance, and it's a special channel just for the show. And until next time, I'm your host, Marie Mason, and Susan Boyd, and we're saying
goodbye. Thank you very much.
Happy
New Year.
Happy New Year and Merry Christmas. And
Merry Christmas.
Oh my God.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yep. And saying goodbye now from the Choosing Accepted podcast. And here is a word from our sponsors. Have a great week, everyone. And that ends this week's show. My name is Marie Mason. I am the author of Bubble Bear Special Problem. And this book destigmatizes learning disabilities in order to provide a better understanding of their learning disability process. It helps children to overcome their fear of learning disabilities so that they can contribute their talents by bringing awareness to how children should be treated in and out of the classroom. If you would like more to learn about this book, then go to Amazon.com and check out Bubble Bear Special Problem by Marie Mason.